Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. Dan Gryder, probable cause. Yet another video about the tragic loss of the RJ collision with the helicopter up in DC here just last week. This is my third video. I'm going to go back out on a limb again and tell you 100% ATC error. I'd like for you to hear me out on this thing because there's a couple things that I got to point out here that I have not heard anywhere else. I want you to understand the difference. There's a huge difference in terminology here. I'm going to step through this. This is going to be a very short video, but I think once you see this video and see the examples that I give you, I want you to totally understand what truly happened here and the specific use of the terminology that was used and what it means. It's critical to it. I haven't heard it anywhere else. Nobody was talking about this. I was not going to make a third video, but at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you exactly what the deal is. First of all, let's take a look at the controller's Bible. It's the 7110. I'll put it up on the screen here for you. This is 7110.65AA General ATC service. The primary purpose of the ATC system is to prevent a collision involving aircraft operating in the system. Well, a collision is loss of separation. That means two airplanes collided. What can we tell from this accident so far? They definitely collided. There's no doubt about that at this point. What must their altitudes have been at the collision? Well, their altitudes must have been the same. Was there a loss of separation? Yes. Is it possible to have a loss of separation where the airplanes do not collide? Yes. You can have an LOS. What happens during an LOS where nobody gets killed? Well, that's paperwork. That's a violation. The pilot can get violated. The controller can get in trouble. That's an LOS. It's a big deal. A loss of separation. A pilot that commits a loss of separation is off to the races. A controller is responsible for no loss of separation. I'm going to go over the three types of separation at this point. I'll put them on your screen here. LOS is either vertical, lateral, or special. One of the three. Lateral means that they're going to separate the airplanes laterally and keep them 3 to 5 miles apart, depending on the airspace. Vertically means they're going to separate them vertically. Used to be RVS, before RVSM, we had to have 2,000 feet of vertical separation between airplanes meeting head-on. 2,000 feet. They've reduced that down to 1,000, called RVSM reduced vertical separation, but our separation minimums are very, very tight up there above flight level 310. For vertical separation. Your separation minimums down low are still 1,000 feet between IFR traffic vertically and at least 3 miles, sometimes 5 miles, but we have separation standards, which you have to have. Those standards are set in stone and defined depending on the aircraft, the type, where you are, and what the whole situation is. You have an LOS when two aircraft bust either lateral or vertical separation minimums. Could you get around any one of those deals? Is it possible for you to not have an LOS paperwork problem and still bust those? Yes. And that's via a means called a special. And I'm going to read this to you. This is out of the 7110. These are the letters and the provisions that are in 7110 between an ARTCC, that's your Air Route Traffic Control Center, and another government agency. This is their rules. Interfacility coordination for control of ATC aircraft. What this means is that they get together, they have a meeting, they shake hands, and they put it down on paper. Well, normally our separation standards are this vertically or this laterally. In this particular case, we're going to give you a pass. You don't have to have those standards. You can take it all the way down to this. For example, leaving a Class D airport in a Cessna 172, you have certain weather minimums you have to comply with in order to leave that. They don't want you leaving the Class D. The tower will not clear you for takeoff unless the weather minimums are at least 3 miles visibility and certain cloud clearances. They don't want you scud running. However, if you say the magic words to the controller, he will waive those ceiling and visibility requirements. If you say the magic words to the controller, which are request special VFR, those are magic words. Then he'll come back with special VFR approved. Then you can leave the same airport in the same airplane with 1 mile visibility and stay clear of clouds. He's permitting you to scud run out of that airport because you spoke the magic words. You made a request is all you did here. In the case of the RJ crash with the helicopter, I'm going to go over the two. I'm going to give you two examples here. I'll put them up on the screen here, and here's what the guy actually said. This is on a previous flight. Maintain visual separation, and he comes back and he says, Brickyard 4385, maintain visual separation, and he reads back, maintain visual separation, Brickyard 4385. This is the tower telling a Brickyard to maintain visual separation. That is not a request. That is not a deal. Let's listen to it.
Brickyard 4385, maintain visual separation, starting company in the upwind. Traffic will follow you visually. Traffic 4 mile final way, 19, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, 19, maintain visual, Brickyard 4385.
On a previous flight, air traffic control at DC tries to get Pat 11, a different airplane, different helicopter, different night, but he tries to get him to request the special consideration. He wants him to request the deal. The problem is that the controller cannot solicit. The problem is that the air traffic controller cannot just issue this without the helicopter specifically requesting him. He has to coax that helicopter into asking for and using the special words. Let's listen to this. Let's listen to Pat 11. Let's listen to Pat 11 request visual separation.
And Pat 11, traffic's going to be approaching Cabin John, continuing down the river. It's going to be a southwest 3,500 descending, landing runway 1.
Request visual separation, Pat 11.
So there he said it, request visual separation, and he came back with the answer, visual separation approved. Now they have a deal. They have a handshake in place. When you request the special deal, this is involving this letter of agreement, this handshake deal. Now, your lateral and vertical separation minimums go down to almost zero. In fact, they do go down to zero. Their only rule is left, don't hit him. You can come within 6 inches as long as they don't swap paint and it's completely legal. No deal. Nobody's in trouble as long as they don't hit, because you said the magic words, request visual separation, and you got the answer, visual separation approved. Now let's listen to the controller. The helicopter, our accident helicopter, is way north, 5 or 6 miles north, proceeding southbound, and he knows he's got this RJ swinging out to the right for a visual on runway 33. He's trying to get the helicopter to ask for this. So he gives him the traffic, hoping that the helicopter, the accident helicopter, hoping that the helicopter is going to pick up on this and request it. And he did. Listen to this.
Pat 25, traffic just off the Wilson Bridge to CRJ at 1,200 feet, start from runway 33. Good separation proof.
It worked. The helicopter requested visual separation. Visual separation is the magic word. And he came back and he said, visual separation approved.
Good separation proof.
The controller is relieved of all obligation. His separation minimums, his former lateral and vertical separation minimums just went to zero. It's all on the helicopter because they have the special deal. Is it safe? No, it's not safe. But the controller got him to speak those words. Just before the impact, about 18 seconds before the impact, alarms were going off in the tower. He could look out the window and see that they were flying right towards each other, and he was getting visual and audible alarms in the cockpit or in the control tower cab. He did nothing about it. He could have turned the helicopter. His job is visual separation. His job is to keep those airplanes apart, but he knows he's already got the letter in place. The rule is in his favor, so he just simply asks him, do you have the helicopter inside? Can you pass behind him? What's the helicopter do? He comes back and invokes the rule one more time. He says visual separation, request visual separation. He's wanting to make sure that he puts it on tape that they've got their deal in place. Request visual separation. Tower comes back, says, yes, visual separation approved. That doesn't mean anything except we're shaking hands again a second time to make sure this is going to be really close. If there's paperwork, I want everybody to know that we had a deal. There are no vertical or lateral separation minimums involved here because we had a deal. Those were the last words spoken before the impact. He wanted to make sure that the deal was public, on record, and on tape, that they had a deal and they shook hands on it.
Pat 25, get the CRJ in flight. Pat 25, pass behind this CRJ.
This club has a aircraft in flight, request visual separation.
Good separation. Good separation. Good separation. Good separation.
Now, real quick, I'm going to show you the approach plate for runway 33. This is the RNAV for runway 33. They were not clear for the RNAV. They were clear for the visual. They were actually clear for the visual runway 1, and they scooted them out. This is not a circle to land. They just told them to turn right and line up for runway 33. This puts them very close in and kind of an unstable approach. What would the captain in the left-hand seat of that RJ be doing? He's flying the airplane and he's looking left. What's he looking for? He's looking for glide slope. I'm going to put this screen on here. This is right out of the approach plate for RNAV runway 33. This fix ID TEC right out here at 490 feet MSL and runway 33. I want you to look at it. It says the VGSI angle is 3 degrees. That's your glide slope. That's your PAPI angle. And your TCH, that's threshold crossing height, is 37 feet. Well, let's look at this thing on a side view here. I've drawn a map here. Here's the collision point. 3,850 feet off the end of the runway. There's your threshold crossing height. And if you drop in a 3-degree angle here, the collision point is actually, if you do the math, the collision point is actually 201 feet above the surface of the water. I think the helicopter and the airplane hit at about 201 feet. Since MSL and AGL are very close to value, your RA data, which is radar altimeter data, will tell the exact AGL altitude at the impact, likely very close to 200 feet. I don't know who was slightly high or who was slightly low, but it's insane that you're guaranteeing the lives of 64 people based on a helicopter that can fly plus or minus 50 feet. Maybe the RJ was slightly high. Maybe the RJ was slightly low. Maybe the helicopter was slightly high. Doesn't matter. They should have had lateral separation. They waived their guaranteed separation when they shook hands and did the deal. Request visual separation. Visual separation approved. Now they've got a deal in place. There are no separation minimums. You've got an airliner out there with an offending airplane, a helicopter heading straight at it, and you've totally waived all safety based on one set of eyes in the helicopter that thinks they could do it. Were they looking at the wrong airplane? Was the helicopter looking at the wrong airplane? Probably. The problem occurred long before in ATC setting this airplane up for runway 33, head on with the helicopter and getting that helicopter to bite off on request visual separation. That's totally different than the other visual separation that we're talking about. When a helicopter pilot says request visual separation, that is a deal. The deal was confirmed and sealed. Now the controller, his level of care just went completely to zero. He doesn't care. He says the helicopter's got it. He sees him. That's his job. That's not my job. He's sitting there in the tower cab saying it's not my job. What was truly going on in the tower cab that night, we don't know because we've got no tower cab video, audio recording of what was happening, who was standing where, who was on their phone, who was talking, and who was eating a Snickers bar. We will never know because there is absolutely no way to tell, and tower cabs don't have any video or audio, so when you have an incident, you can go back and look and see exactly who was standing where. How come this tower controller, whose job it was under 7110 to keep separation, how come this tower controller absolutely looked at that screen and never said anything except, let's confirm that we have the deal in place, don't we? Let's agree we've still got this deal in place. The helicopter specifically said request visual separation, and the very last words were visual separation approved. Everybody wants to make sure that this crash is going to be completely legal, and it was. They were at the same altitude. They were about 200. My guess is the radar altimeter is going to show probably around 250. The helicopter was probably slightly high. The RJ was turning in on the path. The RJ was belly up to this helicopter. Could not possibly have seen him in a left-hand turn belly up. 2 different frequencies. The poor guys in the RJ didn't even know that there was another helicopter out there. Had no idea. Would never given a traffic advisory. The air traffic control system completely fell down on the job on this 100%. It's their job to prevent this from happening. Did they do it? No. It's a complete FAA air traffic control failure.